Welcome to another Dragonlance Saga Hangout. It is Lenara's Fluor Green the 7th. Every new month, I have trouble getting through the name there. My name's Adam. I'd like to take a moment to thank the members of this YouTube channel and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using the affiliate links also in the description below. And of course, it's Sunday. Happy Sunday. I don't know what you guys do on Sundays. I usually do yard work or I go for a hike or whatever. This morning, I had a wonderful conversation about Clive Barker's book and film Cabal and Nightbreed, respectively, with some old friends on the Horrific podcast. So if you guys like horror, go check that out. You can also pick up t-shirts like this Creepy Trees, Keeping It Creepy t-shirt I'm sporting right now. All right, so today we are going to be reading Margaret Weiss's letter, Raistlin to Caramon, or Margaret Weiss's Raistlin's letter written to Caramon is literally the first she's ever written about Raistlin, even before Test of the Twins. There's a date on it. I wouldn't have known about it if it wasn't for Chris. So Chris, thank you very much for sending it my way. And well, there you are. Thanks, man. And so I grabbed the Twitter screenshot. We'll look at that. We'll actually go through and read the letters as we're looking at the letters. And it's really one letter, 2 pages, page and a half, page and 3/4, whatever. And it'll be fun. But that's going to be in a minute because boy, did I have a week. Did I ever have a week. So the most imminent news was that yesterday, we just got back from a trip to Mexico. We went down to Playa del Carmen and crawled around some Mayan cenotes or caves and a lot of Mayan structures and stuff. And it was a really great time. I didn't even get sunburnt, but I had a blast. And what I didn't realize going down there, I know a friend of mine told me about it, but I didn't believe him because I live in Utah, which is a very high elevation. Going down there, of course, is sea level. And I ended up drinking an insane amount just trying to get a buzz. Whereas here, I have 2 glasses of wine and I got a buzz, or 1 glass of wine and I got a buzz. Down there, I was drinking like 6 shots of Jack, 2 glasses of wine. I couldn't get a damn buzz, even though I was acting like a maniac the whole time. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, we get back. Our dogs were boarded at separate places. My neighbors had my small dog, which is a little Shih Tzu named Minnie. She's adorable, but she's old as hell. And my younger dog, which is a big wolf husky hybrid named Fenris. I'm sorry, that was my first dog, Freya. She is much younger, but she's getting middle-aged for dogs anyway. Anyway, we got them both back, and for whatever reason, Freya, the big dog, decided to attack Minnie, the young dog. Small dog. Old dog, small dog. Really bit her, like a tooth went into the top of her head and bottom of her jaw. She was bleeding openly for quite some time. We ended up stopping the bleeding, but she wasn't really responding much. We were actually worried about her dying because she's so old. She's actually outlived a Shih Tzu's normal lifespan. And so we were sort of, afraid of the worst, but it looks like she's sort of recovered. And so she's, obviously hurt, but she's on the other side of it. And so we've been dealing with that. On top of it, the old dog has strokes. And so usually it's when she gets really excited, she'll have seizures. She'll have a seizure. Yesterday, because of all the trauma that she suffered, she had 2 seizures and she wasn't doing anything but laying there. And we were really, really scared she was going to end up dying, but she didn't. She pulled through because she's an amazing little dog and we love her to death. So fingers crossed I'm getting all stupid emotional. Fingers crossed she'll do okay. Anyway, so yeah, Playa del Carmen was great. Mexico is great as long as you're on a resort or in one of the touring areas. We ended up doing an Octun Chin zip line tour. It was 90 minutes in the canopy of the jungle down at the Riviera Maya. And then we did their own little cenote cavern, which was actually filled with a whole bunch of catfish too. So not only were we looking at the great rock formations and the super crystal clear water, and we were snorkeling. And so we were diving down, but also with all the fish, we were we were swimming through these schools of catfish, you're sort of caressing their backs as they were swimming away from us. It was a great time. And then we went to Tulum, which is this ancient Mayan city. on the top of this hill overlooking the grand ocean, and it was beautiful. And then we went to their little cenote, which is called Rio Secreto, which is basically like a tour of like spelunking through these water-filled canyons, caverns, which was a great time as well. Got a bunch of photos, and it's just wonderful. I don't think you guys care that much about it, or else I would show some photos, but I don't know, maybe on the website or something. So it's been, this past week has been crazy, crazy busy. I did rush out a How to Play Kaz episode, which is going to be dropping on Tuesday. I'm not really proud of it. Like, I designed all the pieces for the Kaz board, and they're available, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But I don't know, doing these How to Plays, I have to write the script, and then I perform and record the script, and then I record the video for it. And so it doesn't quite mesh perfectly as if I was just doing it while I was giving my script. So I don't know. I'm not 100% proud of it as I would normally be, just because I feel like I was rushed trying to pump it out. Because normally I do the episodes a week in advance, but I was in Mexico, so I couldn't do the episode. So I rushed it out yesterday. So don't judge me too like strongly for it, please. It does teach you how to play the game, which is the purpose of the video. It's a lot like chess, but I don't know. I could have done better with more time. What are you gonna do? Chris, thanks for tuning in. You're like a bad penny. Jeff, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in live. We appreciate you. Yeah, she is doing better, so fingers crossed she's gonna recover fully. All right. So a couple notes going forward. The gaming schedule. For those of you who have been watching the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen campaign that I've been running, those have been every other week, basically, from 11:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoons. That's changing. Now it's going to be 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday evenings. So if you've been tuning in and you've been wanting to watch this coming Saturday, not yesterday, but this coming Saturday on the 13th, we're going to do the regular time, which is 11:30 to 3:30. Then the week following that, which is the 20th, we're moving to evenings. And I'm doing this so that I can do yard work in the morning. Right now, my hops plants were like super grown and sprouting their little sprouts, and I had to trim them down and everything yesterday. And my grapevines are exploding. I haven't even trimmed those yet. I'm supposed to have done it like a month ago. I was lazy. And so if you garden, it takes a lot of time working and weeding and planting and watering and doing everything to take care of your garden. And then also we got flower beds and we have a lawn, and so we have to tend to all that. So for the summer and spring and fall, it's a little bit more challenging for me to do Saturday afternoons, hence the time change. So just so you know, next week is normal. The week following, we're going to the evening shows. Hopefully it'll be okay. Hopefully I don't lose any players, because I personally think the crew that I have right now is dope AF. They're awesome. And I'm hoping we can keep everyone together and have a really great game. And to be quite honest, the Warriors of Krynn session took so much time last game, even though I enjoy playing it. I'm not even really playing it. I'm like supervising it. Like it's kind of weird. So I play the Dragon Army whenever it's the battle set, part of the turn. But I'm not actually like playing it, which is kind of weird. But it took a lot. So we didn't get a lot of role playing, but the role playing we did get in was really fun and interesting. And so this coming one, it's going to be just adventure crawling, Dragonlance Classico type stuff. I'm so excited to do it. Maybe the live game of Kaz would help accomplish the how-to video. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to do it because I got work. But I will do a playthrough if people want to play. I'll just need an opponent. So, Chris, you're it. All right. There's a new member level. This is the last news announcement, and then we'll get to the letter. The last news announcement. I reinstated the Whitestone Council. I've been sort of tossing around what benefit there would be to having multiple levels of membership. Initially, the first level of membership is just to say thanks for doing all this content, because it does take a significant amount of my time, a lot of my creative juices, and to put it, that sounds almost dirty, and to put all the content out and stuff, it takes just a significant amount of time. And so I figured 99 cents a month is enough to say, hey, thanks, a little tip of your cap. And then I'll throw in live member readings now that I'm not doing the regular Dragonlance readings because I've pretty much finished everything I could read. Now moving forward with the Whitestone Council, I have a lot of gaming resources that I've loaded into virtual tabletops. I personally use Roll20, but whatever virtual tabletop you use. So I've got the Dragonlance board game, I've got Magestone's board game, I've got Dragonlance 5th Age Fate deck, I've got Kaz board game, and then all the other stuff like the Talus card deck and everything else that I'm going to be, sort of scanning in and doing like videos for. All those resources have been around since the 80s, most of them anyway. So I figure if I'm taking all the time to scan it all in, I might as well give it to members as well. So ultimately, I will get to Warriors of Krynn. I'm thinking about releasing Warriors of Krynn on a scenario basis because there's so many different cards and stuff that I'll just release the ones that are scenario specific each month. And so every month, I'll release a new set of resources that are relevant. So for April, what did I release for April? The Fate deck, the scanned-in Fate deck. For May, I released the Kaz board game, which is the actual my board that I designed, and then the individual pieces. So you can actually play the game on your own in a virtual tabletop with any of your friends. And then for June, I think I'm going to do Magestones. Yeah, I'll probably do Magestones for June. So look forward to those if you want to up your membership level or join for the first time. I think it's like, now, man, I should have looked this up. I think it's like $1.99 or $2.99 or something like that a month for that. And again, that's going to get you all the membership readings. Of course, just saying thank you and all the game resources every month as well. So if it's worth it to you, I welcome you. If it's not, that's okay. No big deal. All right. Hey, Horrific Podcast. I just saw this morning. How you doing, man? Should we get to the reading? So I saw Margaret Weiss posted this on Twitter. Joe Maganello reposted on Twitter, and then Chris sent it to me. So this is Margaret Weiss saying that this is a letter from Raistlin to Caramon. I wrote this in January 1984 when I was at TSR. You can see from the timestamp. It was written 3 months before the short story Test of the Twins appeared in Dragon magazine, and months before Tracy and I decided to write Autumn Twilight. I recently found this in a box in a closet. I believe she gave the original ones to Joe Maganello, and what I have, I made a PDF out of it, so I can just read it here and perform a reading for you. But this is the 2 pages of the actual letter. So I'm going to do this in my Raistlin voice that I read all of the Dragonlance comics under, which is just my whisper voice. So let's have some fun. Let's find out what Raistlin wants to tell Caramon, because I have not read this yet. This is the first time. Monday, January 30th, 1984, 7:58 a.m. I have often believed my intelligence a curse. It was a cruel trick the gods played, imprisoning this hot and hungry spirit in a body as fragile as a charred log. They would have taught me compassion, and in part they succeeded. I have always felt the bitter sting of injustice for those too weak to fight powerful brothers for a rightful share of mother's milk. But did I hurt for them? No. I pitied them, always, and it felt good to pity someone as I have known myself to be pitied. How much of this will you understand, my brother? Very little, I know. How could you understand? You whose body has always answered to your spirit. You who take what you want, or are given it for the asking, while I crawl through a world of tricks and illusions, duplicity and sham, amazing all beholders with a few flashy pyrotechnics. I learned, you see, long ago, how to avoid pain. Dear, good Caramon, dear, good, steadfast Caramon, dear, good, steadfast, boring Caramon, Why have you loved me all these years? You, the only one, for our mother never loved me, nor can I blame her. I discovered when I was 5 that I knew more of the world than she did. I never needed her, and we do not love those who do not need us. And that is it, I suppose. That is the reason why you love me. I needed you, and I love you for the same reason. You needed me. Does that amaze you, brother dear? You needing me? Raistlin, the weak one, the one always pushed to the rear of any battle, while you jump forward to meet the enemy with glorious flash of sword. You need me, I repeat. You need me to need you. What will happen to you when I am gone? Your small flame will have nothing to feed on. Will it dim and die, I wonder? Gone? Yes, I am going. I need you no longer, Caramon. I have found that which will be both mother and brother to me. Aye, and lover too, for in that I know you pity me most. How can you understand that the decaying flesh these eyes see sickens me, yet fills me with desire? A desire to embrace death, to be one with it, and end my fear. To rule death, brother! That is what I seek, and that is what I have in my reach. And if I succeed, what then? Immortality? I am not so foolish to believe in that. How could I, knowing that a sneeze might end my days forever? No, I will have power over life and death, something those fools of dragon lords sought and could never achieve. Their gruesome, monstrous armies could snuff out a man's life, but not his spirit. Or her spirit. Ah, Lorana, I will see you always, shining star of my dark heavens. So why did I fight them? Petty, ignorant people. They did not deserve to rule. But now they will play my game. Now they will come to me, and they will pay whatever I ask. They will acknowledge me, master. And you, will you come, Caramon? With misguided loyalty, will you follow after me to save me once again? The thought flatters me. I can see you, dear, bumbling brother, battling God knows what for my sake. I can see self-sacrifice light your noble countenance. Don't do it, Caramon. I see another vision, a very pleasant one. You on your knees. The hour grows late. I tire easily, as you know. I have studied long this night, and I have reached my decision. As of now, you have no brother, Caramon. I die at birth, as I should have. Take this letter to Tanis. He will explain it to you. He understood me. That is why I feared him. I fear him. I fear no one. No longer. That's pretty awesome. That is pretty damn cool. I always thought, here's why I have a hard time believing that this was the first thing written. Because this is his letter to Caramon at the end of the trilogy of Chronicles, when he was literally leaving his brother after Naraka, the Temple of the Naraka conclave fell apart and the dragon armies were all attacking each other. And like, this is him telling Caramon, peace out. And then that leads into Dragonlance Legends. That's why Caramon was so devastated, because he'd lived his entire life looking after his brother, living for his brother, and now his brother cut him off. He's completely the most powerful wizard on all of Krynn at this point, Raistlin Major. He needs no one. He's paid every debt in Naraka to everyone he ever owed anything to. And now he is his own man. He is on his way to go defeat Fist and Daedalus in the Legends trilogy, to become his own god. This is him at his most powerful, which is why it bothers me that this is the first, because that means that they plotted out the entire Chronicles trilogy before the first book was ever even written, before Raistlin's Test of High Sorcery was ever written. And how can that be when they tell us themselves, Margaret Weiss and Trace Hickman, that they only wrote the first book and it was never to even be a second or a third book? That's why they had Riverwind and Goldmoon's wedding at the very end of it, as a sort of like wrap up of the story, because TSR didn't think it was going to sell very well. They didn't expect it to anyway. And so if they had that all planned out and they only had an opportunity to do the first book, I feel like they would have planned it out better. You know? I mean, that's just my opinion. First of all, I love the Chronicles, but they are flawed. And I'm not in the sort of societal modern eyes looking back at, 1980s fantasy fiction flawed. But like, it skips over a bunch of crazy stuff. The world building was not yet complete. The modules, of course, weren't complete. And so to think that they had these two characters and the dynamic between these two characters nailed down so well, so early, and yet everything else was just sort of up in the air, I just have a hard time believing it. Letter is about the twins. The story come later, right? Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it is, Goldmoon. How you doing, by the way? Thanks for tuning in live. It's just sort of, I don't know. It feels weird to me. That's all. It just feels weird. I understand the date proves. I would be interested to see the original manuscript for Time of the Twins. I'm sorry. For the Test of the Twins short story that was released in Dragon Magazine, to see when it was actually written, to see how far in advance they did their character work before they started writing. And to be fair, 100%, you have to do the characters first. You have to understand who the characters are, where they're going to come from, where they're going to go before you even start writing the story out. You may have story beats down, but the characters are going to help steer the course of the story. And so maybe they did have this 100% nailed down. It just seems weird that they would have this dynamic so pure and planned out, and everything else was just sort of like seemingly unfleshed out at this point. I'm not a writer, so what do I know? So let's see. You're on your balcony with a whiskey, a cigar? Hell yeah, dude. That sounds like a good time. That's what we did. We would go to dinner, and then we'd go pick up a Cuban, walk down to the beach, smoke a cigar, watching the waves, and it was almost a full moon when we were down there, just enjoying ourselves. It was a good time. Sipping on old Johnny Walker Black. You think paying back debts would involve Parsalian and paying him back for the gift of the Hourglass Eyes? Well, hey, Shalafi, thanks for tuning live. He did. Once he became a god, he forced Parsalian to watch the fall of the gods and the fall of the gods of magic even. And tortured him the whole time. It was pretty awesome. It's amazing that Weiss wrote this even before Chronicles. She said in interviews that she knew that the character instantly from the artwork showing the Hourglass Eyes. Yeah, I find that very interesting as well. His opinions on Tanis and Lorana seem to have changed the most from this letter to the fully finished out Chronicles. I don't know. He's always thought Lorana was beautiful, and even in the Chronicles, and so I thought that was on par. I thought the fact that he respected and feared Tanis because Tanis knew him. Like, Tanis would talk smack on Raistlin, but he always went to him for advice and help. And so they had a very interesting relationship dynamic that none of the other companions had. And I do feel like that is, in my perspective, true to form. It'd be interesting to see what other people think about it. Let's see. The letters about the twins came together later. Weiss had a special connection with Raistlin. You feel like she knew this whole path in her head even before she couldn't be sure she... Well, yeah. The fact is that when Dragons of Mystery DL5 came out, and then later when Dragonlance Adventures DLA came out, and then later when Leaves from the End of the Last Home came out and did a sort of a culmination of all how the companions met and how Raistlin got his test and stuff, she changed Raistlin's story. She released the Soul Forge, which dramatically changed how Raistlin got into the school with Intimides. And originally, it was his father that put him in the school. How his father and Kitiara took care of him, and then later it ended up being, no, it was just Kitiara. How he had taken his mother's psychic visions, her telepathy, and then her sort of, I don't know if it was ESP, but she had psychic visions, and he had that in the early version. Later on, he never had it. So Raistlin did dramatically change. His story dramatically changed from when she originally wrote him, all through the Chronicles and Legends, all through the cycle of the original Dragonlance modules and everything, to later when she came back to it. And she sat on that script for a while, which means she knew she was fundamentally altering his trajectory and his history for a while before it was actually published. Whether that bothers you or not is one thing. But I just got a message from someone saying, this is BS, when they looked at my Raistlin Majir video. Like, that's not how it happened. This is how it happened. And I had to correct them saying, no, this is exactly how it happened originally. It was changed later. So you can complain about it if you want, but you're going to have to complain to Margaret Weiss, not me. And you can't complain much because she originally wrote him. So if she wants to change his story, it's on her, which is why I don't mind if Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman change the Legend of Huma. Because that was Richard Knack, not Tracy Hickman, who created Huma. And so when they, in their next book of the Dragons of Fate, are going to be dealing with Raistlin, Sturm, Tasselhoff, Destina, and Magius and Huma, like right in the description, it says that Raistlin and Sturm have to deal with the changing of the legend of Magius and Huma and reconciling that with the reality of them. So I think they're going to do their version of Huma and Magius and not Richard Knack's version of Huma and Magius. And that's going to piss a lot of people off because a lot of people got into Dragonlance through the novel, The Legend of Huma. It's interesting. I think it's going to be fun. And I love that stuff. So I don't even care if they change it up. They created the character. They can do whatever they want with them. Same way, I didn't mind that Tracy Hickman demanded that Lord Soth come back from Ravenloft in order to do the War of Souls trilogy. It was his character to begin with. And when James Lowder took Lord Soth from Dragonlance into Ravenloft, he changed the fundamental nature of Lord Soth. And though I love that version of Lord Soth, it's not the version that Tracy Hickman wrote. And it's not the version that Tracy Hickman planned. And so when we finally do get to see the end of Lord Soth in the War of Souls trilogy... Oh, was it War of Souls? Yeah, it was War of Souls. We get the Tracy Hickman version of Lord Soth. And it's interesting because different authors write these really sort of fundamental characters that are so famous and sort of break boundaries of fantasy IP. You know, it's in the fantasy zeitgeist at this point, Lord Soth and like Raistlin Majir and Huma Dragonbane and Magius, that to see them treated in different ways and how fans react to that. Because the fans didn't make them. They just fell in love with them. So you have to just sort of tip your cap, say, all right, this is your character. You take them where and we'll just follow. And, you know, you can make a very convincing argument that they changed Tasselhoff Burfoot. Because Tasselhoff, from everything we learned before to Tasselhoff in Dragons of Destiny or Dragons of Deceit, is completely different. Tasselhoff in the Destina story is a completely different Tasselhoff. He's much more stupid, naive, and a sucker. He was never like that before. And so it is interesting to see how authors change over time how they treat characters. All right, so let's see. You may be wrong, and usually are, but you never got the feeling from the Chronicles that Raistlin feared Tanis more than he respected him. Yeah, you're right. That's how I interpreted it as well. But respect can come through either admiration or fear, and either way, I don't care how he got it. I just appreciated that he did, in fact, respect him and his opinion and stuff. And he trusted him, too. You know, for a character like Raistlin Majir, who didn't trust anyone, he just assumed everyone had ulterior motives like he did, a bit solipsistic, to have him trust Tanis in order to properly lead the companions, even when Tanis didn't, that speaks a lot about his judgment, Raistlin's judgment, you know? And it also makes you start to wonder, if he was such a good judge about Tanis, was he a good judge about Caramon? Because he treated Caramon like a dolt, like a total idiot. And what we learned about Caramon was that he wasn't. He just took his time to examine all angles, and he ended up being a brilliant general in the post-Dwarfgate Wars when they traveled back in time in the Legends trilogy. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. So let's see. You think Raistlin wanted people to know him early on and understand that everyone around them... Sorry, I'm getting old. Trusted and followed Tanis, so he was like, yeah. In the Deceit novel, you like to think Tasslehoff was acting stupid because he was under the influence of Destina's love potion. It's the only way you can enjoy those sections. Yeah. But how long did those things last? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe she kept like microdosing him. Love potion number 9 and stuff. All right, so that is really all I wanted to talk about today. I had nothing else. I just wanted to talk about the characters and the fact that she had it fully rounded in this early little manual for this early little letter before his test was ever even taken. And that's another thing that she changed, was the test. Completely. Because she wrote it in Test of the Twins. Then another author took it over for the Soulforge game book. And then she took it over again for the Soulforge novel. And I think his test has never been satisfying. What do you guys think about Raistlin Majir's Test of High Sorcery? Or arguably any Test of High Sorcery that we've seen played through? Like we've seen the mage in the comic series. I can't remember her name. But she did a test as well. They were like hunting down a renegade through time, and they ended up having her test be her helping Parsalian and LaDonna as they were trying to sort of capture this renegade mage. It was a good comic series story arc too. See, the early concepts, it sounded like Raistlin had loved Lorana. I don't know. I think he was infatuated with her because he didn't see her aging like he saw everyone else. If you could just imagine for a second watching, it's like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones first film, where they open the Ark of the Covenant and all the ghosts come out and they suck the Nazis' faces into like skulls and then bones, and they break apart into dust. That's what Raistlin sees every single day in every face he looks at. He looks at a piece of fruit and it withers and dies. He looks at a flower and it withers and dies. He looks at faces and they wither and die. That's a horrific way of living your life. So to see someone who isn't actively doing that, that's pure, uncut, clean beauty. And that's what he saw in Lorana when he first saw her. And so I'm not surprised that he admires her, you know. I do think it's a little weird because he would have seen elves before, because Solace is... It's a traveling town. Like, people just go through it. You know, they come, stay at the famous Inn of the Last Home, and then they move on. And so I feel like he would have seen elves before then. Rarely, I'm sure. But, I don't know. He did freak out about it, which is kind of cool. Hey, Traylon, thanks for tuning in live. Yeah, Raistlin's Quest could definitely be its own book. Which is why I was so disappointed in the end of Soulforge when they finally got to the test and it was just like a chapter. I was just like, oh man, come on. So you never fully liked Raistlin's Test of High Sorcery because it was the most versions it sounded like he was going to die if he didn't accept Fizdano's help, so that's not really a choice. Yeah, and the reality is he could have done it. He just chose the easy path, which is a weird choice to make when you're someone who is relying on his own metal, you know? I mean, the thing about Raistlin is if he could, he always did things himself, and he would scorn those who helped him, like he scorned Caramon. So I wonder why he made the choice to give in when he could have defeated that dark elf. Was it because Fisandalis had a silver tongue and he convinced him? Or was it because he was just exhausted and tired and he wanted to be over? Or was he afraid he couldn't do it, and so he just hedged his bet? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment. So it's interesting. Yeah, Caramon Majir, I love that character. I think he was underplayed until Legends. He was presented as a sort of big oaf, sort of a dummy who just likes sleeping with women, which I get it. But still, you want substance, to your shenanigans. At least I do. More power, unlimited power. Oh, maybe that was it. The promise of power is why he turned in, accepted Fisandalis' goals. And then, when you think about it, he didn't know what Fisandalis was. All he knew is that he was an insanely powerful mage who was willing to help this apprentice just for a little life energy, a little vitality. And Raistlin was like, I'm sick anyway, man. So you want to take a little bit of the sickness? Fine. How bad could it get? Little did he know, it got much better. From that early relationship, I thought the dynamic between, which is why I'm so excited about this coming Dragons of Death or Fate coming out in August, is so going to be good. Because I thought the dynamic between Sturm and Raistlin was always awesome. Because Raistlin always respected Sturm for being Sturm, for being the Knight of Solamnia, even though he wasn't, for living a code of honor that meant he had an infinitely more difficult, challenging life than it needed to be. And I think watching the devotion that Sturm Brightblade had to his code echoed Raistlin's devotion to the magic, Like he would do anything for the magic, just like Sturm would do anything for his honor. And so though they're wildly disparate in their ideas and understandings, it's kind of the same idea. Like you're devoted to an ideal, you will fight and die for that ideal, even if that ideal is magic. His line about lying to everyone but himself was epic. Yeah, exactly, man. That was so good. I did also love whenever you get Sturm just sort of like looking away, he's like, you guys, all right, do your thing. I'll just pretend it didn't happen. I really love the story about when they were kids and Sturm and Raistlin were working together to like foil. So it was very Scooby-Doo-ish, but to foil local robbers. I thought that was a fun little story too. Kind of cool. Let's see, getting more scenes with Raistlin and Sturm together is worth buying the book alone. Hell yeah. Especially when they're going to do that Scooby-Doo like double take, that once they see their heroes and the reality of their heroes. I mean, in almost every case, you meet your heroes, you're going to be disappointed because you put people on pedestals. And remember, Uma was just a dude. He was a Knight of the Crown that no one really liked. He just happened to be the most honorable and the most straightforward, and hence fell in love with a dragon, was given an option of saving the world with a Dragonlance or going and marrying his girl, the dragon. And he chose the difficult life of living the ideal and burning out and dying young. And you got to respect that, even though none of the other knights would have made that same choice. And then Magius was just a power-hungry nut job. This guy didn't care about orders of high sorcery. He wore every robe, even brown and gray, for being a renegade. And he sided with, what was the name? It was Draconus? The bad guy in Legend of Huma. Oh, it's escaping my mind right now, but whatever his name was, he sided with them and learned under them because he wanted more power, just like Raistlin. So I wonder if they're going to use Magus as a sort of like a tease for Raistlin, who at this time is a red robe mage, a neutral mage, as like Raistlin is going to like imprint on his own psyche what Magus is like. Because if Magus is power hungry, which he was, and he would do anything to gather more power, more magic, that's what Raistlin ended up doing. What if they sort of rewrite Raistlin's story of being influenced by Magius, and that's why he chose Fisandanalis's offer in the Tower of High Sorcery when he was taking his test of High Sorcery, because he wanted more power, and now he has a reason because he saw it already happen. No, because that's after that. Damn it, I'm ruining my own timeline in my head canon here. So you just thought of this. You wonder if the gods of good gave Soth the opportunity to save the world from the cataclysm because Huma's example, and might have chose otherwise if not for Huma. You wonder if the gods of good gave Soth the opportunity to save the world from the cataclysm because of Huma's example. Interesting. I mean, they like Goldmoon. Noobs like Pegasus rats. They gave a bunch of people opportunities to help with the cataclysm, and every one of them failed. So, I don't know, maybe. I mean, Paladine was... First of all, I have a hard time, like, comparing Soth and Huma. Soth was a devoted true knight. I'm sorry, Huma was a devoted true knight. Soth was always a bad knight. Like, he was always cutting corners and, going his own way, and, like, he was never, like, the pinnacle of what the knighthood was supposed to be. He always, he fooled around on his wife, murdered his wife, fooled around on, well, he didn't fool around on his second wife, but ended up watching his second wife burn because of jealousy. Like, he was not a good dude. So for Paladine to go to him and be like, look, Huma Dragonbane was like a pinnacle of what knighthood was. You're a scumbag. How about you go save the world? I feel like he was setting the world up for a failure. That's a bad choice on Paladine's part. Doesn't make sense. Though, if you would have gone to a good knight and been like, hey, you want to, save the world, or you want to, I don't know, marry the pretty girl? Make a choice, and then, go kill the king priest for me. But that was the choice that Lord Soth had, right? It wasn't to defeat the king priest and then go home in victory. It was to defeat him over and over and over again and be murdered by the king priest over and over and over again until he stopped the king priest, ultimately, until the king priest learned of his own ways, error of his own ways. So what kind of a choice is that for Soth to make? He's like, I can either, in his mind, live in Nightland and just sort of have a great life, or I could redeem myself by dying over and over and over again for you? Like, I would probably choose the house in Nightland too. But I'm not a good guy. So what are you going to do? All right, let's see. Definitely Chronicles. That's the original Star Wars trilogy. Yeah, for sure, man. You think you're going to be hard on Soth. Nobody's perfect. Yeah, he definitely wasn't perfect. I love the character. I think he's a great bad guy. We need good bad guys, like effective, strong, powerful bad guys. You compare that Death Knight to like the War of Souls, not the War of Souls, but Sweet Hell, Mina's trilogy, Dark Disciple trilogy, where she had the Death Knight, Krell, Osric Krell. He was a douchebag of a Death Knight. Just the biggest sniveling coward of a punk ass. So frustrating to see him have the powers of a Death Knight. Are Dragonlance gods similar to the Greek gods, capricious and flawed, unlike omnipotent ones? Yeah, for sure. I think they took cues from the pantheon of Greek gods in this. Trace Hickman did. And it's interesting, like there's in the annotated chronicles, there's a whole essay in the back end of it which talks about the creation of the gods and the pantheon. It wasn't even Tracy Hickman's. It was I think it was Howard Johnson's, if memory serves it, but it was someone else. Anyway, it was their own homebrew game version of gods, and then Trace Hickman just sort of adopted them into Dragonlance and used them from the very beginning, the manifesto that he created for Dragonlance to pitch to the owners of TSR, the creative minds behind the games. So it's interesting. And with Dragonlance, that's really what makes Dragonlance different than one of the things that makes Dragonlance really different than all the other worlds is that the gods play an active role in the world. And you can make the argument that, yeah, they always do because they provide magic spells or divine spells or whatever, but they actually get involved. Like Fizban is the avatar of Paladine, the god, and he is directing people, providing opportunity for them to become heroes throughout all of history. He's intimately involved in that. And Takesis is literally walking the earth, waking up dragons and creating priests out of Verminard as an example, and creating emperors out of Ariakan as an example. And like she's heavily involved in getting people to do her bidding, which is way different than other gods in other settings, because there's sort of these omnipotent beings that just exist in their own planes of existence, and mortals just, they're in the prime material plane doing their own machinations and whatever. Not in Dragonlance. Not in Dragonlance. So let's see. Trailin Soth's inclusion in the Shadow of the Dragon Queen has given you super high hopes. So much potential to be a great villain. Yeah, I loved that first exposure to Soth through Caradoc. This is a spoiler for people who haven't watched my playthrough of Shadow of the Dragon Queen, but I love seeing Caradoc and how Caradoc acted, and then what Soth did, and having the players discover his story through the cataclysmic fire, and knowing what happens next with Soth and the storyline and stuff. And I'm excited to have the players uncover that story because it's pretty cool. And it in my opinion, it doesn't really break canon as egregiously as taking Lord Soth out of Dragonlance did, but it still does fundamentally change Dragonlance, because as soon as, let's be fair, between Chronicles and Lost Chronicles, which was supposed to fill in the gaps, there were huge disparities between Lord Soth, Kittyar, and Ariakan. Like, in Dragons of the High Lord Skies, which is the Lost Chronicles, which was written decades after the original Chronicles was written, Ariakan knew about Lord Soth. But in Dragons of Spring Dawning, when he went to Dargard Keep in order to confront Kittyara and basically kill her, he was stopped by Lord Soth and he was terrified. He's like, "Whoa, you got Lord Soth." Ah! So it's like he already knew that in the book that was before that scene happened, if you want to go in order of events rather than order of books written. And so the authors have really been willy-nilly with timelines, with characters, and throughout their whole history. So you can't really expect consistency in Dragonlance because it's never been there, ever. It's funny to see the Dark Disciples trilogy, to see lesser gods fight for power after Paladin and Takesis are out of the picture. I don't know about them. They're literally lesser, I suppose. Some of them are. But like Sargana's, he's earned it, man. He's totally earned his chance in the sun. Kemish has earned it. He has been working his tail off to get a semblance of power. And so I really like seeing the gods vie for control and power over each other through the mortals on Krynn and stuff. I think that's really fun to watch. It gives it a different dynamic, you know what I mean? Let's see, is there time at some point to do a quick recap video of the Shadow of the Dragon Queen story so far for fans who may be finding it now or may be intimidated by watching all the back episodes? That's an interesting idea. I had not considered. What would be the breaking point? This, I think, would be the breaking point. Like because this is like the first. we've traveled from Vogler to Calaman, and now we're leaving Calaman. So maybe the story up until this point where the characters have left Calaman is a good recap moment, because the story gets infinitely bigger from here on. So yeah, that might be interesting. I don't know. I do the last time on Shadow of the Dragon Queen synopsis of the previous game before we start playing a new game session. I wonder if I just collect all those and then sort of go through and rehash. Or maybe I can get everyone together, all the players, and the players can rehash the story thus far from their perspectives, just sort of do like round robin. Like, all right, you start. What was your experience? What happened to your character with the story? And then we move over to the next character and they just continue it, sort of in a circle. That might be fun too, because then you get the character's perception like you do in the novels rather than the game master's sort of, 1,000-foot story version of it. That'd be kind of fun. Hey, Desert Trance, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Should novelize the series when it's done. That would be fun. That'd be really fun. But I'd love to get, again, the players' perspectives as we're doing it. Because like your experience, Colin, Horrific Podcast, he plays Tobril, is it? I can't remember your character's name. I'm sorry. Torben or something? Anyway, he plays a neater dwarf cleric of reorcs. And his character has a long history of, just traveling and healing and stuff. And he was sort of thrown in to this crazy scenario of things happening a lot more aggressively than the other players did with their characters. What age did you first play a proper campaign? Well, that defining thing, proper campaign, is the linchpin of that question there. Because I played campaigns as a kid all the time. That's a good question. A proper campaign. I'm trying to think all the ones we did. Because we would do a campaign or adventures, 3 or 4 adventures, and then we'd make new characters and do different style of adventures. And then we'd let someone else DM, and then I would play. And so the first proper campaign, I think maybe when I was like, I don't know, 19, 20, 18, 19, I think, probably. I maybe record each character's account, then they could release as a series. That would be cool too. Torgan, that's it, thank you. Is it Torgan or Tongan? Tongan. Prawn handle. All right. What'd be cool is if we could find someone to animate. It doesn't have to be like Legend of Vox Machina on Amazon Prime animation, but just like rough animation of events and stuff. Like when I was a little kid on public access TV, they would have story time. And so I'd be, little child Adam watching TV, and there'd be like Shelley Duvall telling a story, and then someone would be like doing chalk drawings of the story. It wouldn't be complete. It would just be like little, impressionistic style drawings. It'd be kind of cool to do something like that with these experiences, with these characters stuff. I think that'd be fun. You have a 7-year-old and you're wondering how he would do. Oh, first of all, children have infinitely better imaginations. Not all children, but in general, they have better imaginations than any adult. So the earlier you start flexing that muscle, you force them to flex that muscle by telling stories, by imagining things. I think it's better. And role-playing is one of those things that it informs the rest of your life, because basically all it is improv. If you know how to improv, you're going to be a better conversationalist. You're going to be a better actor. You're going to be a better, just generally person to be around. Because you're going to have perspective, because you've spent all that time role-playing other characters' thoughts and actions, other people's motivations, not your own. And so it gives you a perception of how other people think and feel. And that's a really healthy place to be as a human being, because then you're not just hyper focused on you and everything's me, me, me. No, you understand different people a little bit better when you've been in their shoes. even if it's role-playing shoes. And that's why I think it's really, really important to really stretch those imagination muscles in kids early on. Because it doesn't have to be super mechanical gamey, like crunchy game type stuff. You could just do verbal stuff. Or you could read a game book and have them make the choices and ask them why they made the choice. Maybe it's just because, well, I wanted to see the skull, or, I wanted to open the trash and get treasure, or, whatever the reason. But at least they're thinking about it. And then the older they get, the more detailed those thoughts are going to become. And the more deep that muscle builds. It's going to be interesting, I think. So yeah, at the moment you're more than a bit confused. You're more of a confused bofer. Dragonlance is examples of both, but since it's more common, interesting to get Adam's thoughts on that. Both what? You're actually struggling with your character. Are dwarf clerics usually stoic or comical? When you think of dwarves, Gimli, son of Glowin, is always your go-to. That's a good dwarf to use as a... like with every character, we were just talking about this on your podcast. They're not a monolith, every race and class. I think it's interesting to sort of take generic concepts and then refine them to add quirks. You know what I mean? So generally, dwarves are a bit more earthen, stoic, and, sort of proud, crafting type people who are devoted to one singular god, Reorcs, who has gifted them and, given them direction and favor over all other gods. But then you start adding on flamboyance of dress and mannerisms and style of speech pattern. And, you can really sort of dive into it. Like if you look at Dugan Redhammer, who is the avatar of Reorcs, he's a flamboyant gambling addict. Like he's a degenerate gambler. He drinks way too much, but he gambles at every opportunity he can. And he's always dressed in the finest silks and wide-brimmed hats with feathers. And like, he's just the most crazy character ever. And he's a god. Flint Fireforge, on the other hand, is like grumpy and these kids are always getting into trouble. I have to bail them out and they're dragging me on these adventures. But he's also an incredibly insightful and caring and loving grandfather type character of these kids he's bitching about. And he's best friends with the character that he talks the most shit about, Tasselhoff Burfoot. I mean, he waited for him after he died so that they could go into the afterlife together. That's how much he loved this character, or this person. So, I like what you're doing with your character, Colin, because it's a little bit different than the dwarves that we're typically used to. You have a much more even tone about your play, and especially in the group dynamic that we have, where we have a little bit of crazy, a little bit of frustration, and a little bit of chaos. You are a nice even tone in that sort of mess of a party that we've got. And not in a bad way when I say mess. I just mean, colorful, I guess is another way of saying it. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's a super important muscle to have. Flint, the angry old man, for sure. All right. Well, we've chatted for an hour. That's kind of all I had for today. I just wanted to go over that letter and just sort of riff a little bit on the characters because it's fun. Chris's new character trait is that he talks to his axe as epic. Yeah, I like that a lot too. It was a good time. All right. Anyway, I'm looking forward to next Saturday's game. I hope you guys are too. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to meet some exciting new characters that are important later on in life. And that's going to be really cool to see them before they were that person. We're going to go to some really dangerous places and we're going to do some dungeon crawls. We might even go to another plane of existence. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy shit that's going to be coming up. So I hope you guys tune in. This coming Saturday, we're not going to do a Warriors of Krynn session, but the one after that, the 20th, we will start with a Warriors of Krynn game session. I want next week to be just role-playing and adventuring, crawling around, exploring new areas, and having a good time learning about Krynn in this part of the world. And it's going to be filled with Krynn lore. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Just finished Dragons, Dwarven Depths. Ooh, that's a good one, Desert Trance. I like that book. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. That is going to do it for this hangout today. What did you think of this old school Dragonlance literature? Does it hold up after all these years? Feel free to email me in the comments. Email me at info@dlsaga.com or comment below. If you joined in live, thank you guys so much for your time and attention. I really do appreciate it. It makes this a lot more entertaining for me and hopefully for other people. If you're watching this after the fact, consider tuning in live next time. I'd always appreciate it, and you're welcome. I don't care if you agree with me or not. You're always welcome here if you want to talk fantasy and Dragonlance. We love it all. Traylon, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. All right. I'd like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring that bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click that stupid like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga. Thank you for joining in the celebration. This has been Adam. Until next time, Slàinte mhath.